Hello, everybody. Kyle here. I decided to release a top 10 movies of the year video. In fact, last year I tried to make a top 10 films of the year video and it was going really well and I still have it, but unfortunately it used a lot of, I think, copyright. It had a lot of claims that if I uploaded it, it would probably get taken down because I used a lot of music from the various movies I um, was talking about. So I ended up not releasing that video last year, but this year I'm just going to keep it really simple. I'm just going to list my top 10 movies of the year. Probably there won't be any graphics or anything. I'll just put it maybe in the thumbnail of the video. But I'll start off with this was a pretty great year for movies. It felt like this was the year that we really were starting to get back to the movies. Two of the biggest movies of the year, Avatar: The Way of Water and Top Gun: Maverick, were not comic book films, and they managed to gather a whole number of audiences to go out and see them. And that was really great for the movies. It was really great for people that were of a much older demographic because they weren't exactly going to the movies to see Spider-Man No Way Home a couple, you know, well, a year or so ago. Um, but now we're at the end of the year and we can really start to put together our lists for best movies of the year. I had Top Gun Maverick in my top 10 and then it just recently got kicked out of it. So don't expect to see that there. But if I had any honorable mentions, I would list off Top Gun Maverick, which I thought was really good. Um, X, which I loved. Pearl, which I loved. Black Phone, which was also really good. And Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, which I really loved that film. I thought it was really like a perfect Marvel movie in terms of what I've always wanted to see when it comes to Marvel. Um, and I think that the movie itself was a whole bundle of fun. That being said, let's get to my top 10. So, my number 10 movie this year that I think was one of the best films of the year was The Woman King. The Woman King was a film that depicted a story based off of what some even I think at CinemaCon they deem like the real life Black Panther, or the real life Dora Milaje story of a group of women protectors that protected their king, and Viola Davis gives an incredible performance in this film. She really gives, honestly, I think one of her best performances in this movie, both physically and emotionally. She commands every scene she's in. It feels very similar to like a gladiator type epic. I wouldn't say that the film has a ton of action in it. There's a lot of action in the movie, but I remember going into it, I thought it would be like nonstop action. There is about probably 40 minutes of the film dedicated to the training of the main character, the main young girl in the film. That is good. I really loved the cast though because Lashana Lynch is in this movie. She gives an incredible performance. John Boyega plays like the king, and he is so good. I mentioned Viola Davis and just the entire ensemble of this movie. I wouldn't be surprised if they get like an award at the SAG or even Critics' Choice Awards because I mean they just gave such a great performance. The score is amazing by Terrence Blanchard. The direction, the cinematography, it just comes together to be a really rousing film that you leave the theater in cheer, like you want to cheer after you watch it. Okay, so for my number 9 movie of 2022, I chose Pinocchio, directed by Guillermo del Toro, and I think co-directed by another director, but I can't think of the name off the top of my head right now. Um I think he might have been one of the people that kind of helped animate the film with the stop motion. Um, it's just what you expect from a Guillermo del Toro production. It is so beautifully detailed, so meticulously planned. There is so much emotion in this movie between Geppetto, Pinocchio, Geppetto's son Carlo that the film starts off with. Every single frame of this movie is just a visual feast to sink your eyes into. It's a wonderful retelling of the story of Pinocchio, and it also has some really nice messages where you get to really debate, the meaning of life, what happens when people die, how do you move on with your life when those die, how do you accept grief, how do you accept death. There's a lot of great um, you know, themes here. There's also an incredible voice cast from Ewan McGregor as Jiminy Cricket, or in this film, Sebastian Cricket. Geppetto, voiced by David Bradley. Christoph Waltz as kind of like the fox character from the other Pinocchio stories we're so familiar with. He is just marvelous here. And yeah, like I cannot recommend this movie enough. Number 8 on my list is, and now this is um really interesting because this film is Jordan Peele's Nope. And going into Nope, I was very curious because the trailers for Nope did not exactly grip me. There was a thing going into this movie where the trailers were quite vague, and I was like, I'm not really getting much out of these trailers. And it was one of those things where the trailers kept on playing throughout the year. Every movie I went to played the Nope trailer, and I kind of got tired of watching it over and over again. But that being said, um the trailers were brilliant because watching this movie, I legit did not expect anything that would happen in here. There are a number of twists in this film. One of the big twists is actually what exactly is the so-called antagonist of the movie. And I got to say, when it comes to extraterrestrial films, and this is one of them, I think it is known that this movie has aliens in it. When it comes to that type of movie, this is really a almost reinvention of the genre because it really changes the way you perceive what you think you're about to watch. And Peele does some very unique things when it comes to direction, when it comes to sequences that feel like Hitchcockian in a way. There is also an incredible like side plot of this film, but it really speaks to the meaning of the film, involving a chimpanzee named Gordy. And for all those that have watched this movie, they know what I'm talking about. It is a scene that left me just in chills, and I don't know if I could watch this movie again in a theater. I might be able to watch it at home, but it's one of those films that it was a hard watch. And I think that is, when it comes to a horror director, when it comes to a director that really gets under your skin, Jordan Peele is a master at that. And I really think that this is um one of, I mean, he's made some great films, whether it's Get Out. I also really enjoyed Us, but I've seen people say this could be his best film, and I don't know. It might be, like, I think I still prefer Get Out more, but this movie is really really good. And don't even I can't even talk about Nope without expressing how great Kiki Palmer is in this movie, how great Daniel Kaluuya is in this movie, how great even um Stephen Yeun is in this movie, who has quite a small role at the end of the day, but he makes the best out of what he's given. And he really kind of grips you by this performance that isn't necessarily the main performance of the movie. So yeah, like, nope, fantastic. Number 7, Glass Onion: A Knives Out Mystery. Knives Out Mystery is kind of a silly subtitle. It should be called like a Benoit Blanc mystery. But that being said, Glass Onion was just a whole ton of fun watching, because I saw it with my friend in a theater, thankfully, because I have my own gripes with Netflix and how they have been distributing their films as of late, especially when it comes to Pinocchio, which I think should have been released, wide theatrical. Guillermo del Toro's films have always been released theatrical, and the fact that it got such a limited release was really disappointing. But the real disappointment in my eyes was Glass Onion, because the 1 week theatrical release was a complete misfire. It made the money it made, but it would have made a ton of more money being released in theaters for longer. A ton of more people could have seen it in a theater where it was meant to be seen. And that's just it. Like, I haven't watched it on streaming yet. It just dropped on Netflix this week. And I just, it's just so good to see in a theater. Like, I can't say that enough. The audience reaction I had was so much fun. There are twists and turns in Glass Onion that are so good, but really the big element of this movie is the cast. And the cast is just excellent all across the board, from Daniel Craig as Benoit Blanc to Janelle Monáe to Catherine Hahn, Dave Bautista, Edward Norton, Kate Hudson, who gives, I think, one of her best performances. It's just an amazing ensemble. On top of that, it is based around Rian Johnson's brilliant screenplay that just every step of the way you're left guessing. And then I think on rewatches, just like Knives Out, it will really work in its favor, because you can pick up more clues, and it's just a ton of fun. So much better than Kenneth Branagh's Hercule Poirot series, which this is, inspired by Agatha Christie's books. It's just that Rian Johnson knows the exact way to keep an audience engaged in his movie, and this is just another class act by him. So, number 6. This one was a movie that was in my top 5 for quite a while this year. In fact, it was in my top 3 for quite a while, until very recently. It is Robert Eggers' The Northman. Now, I loved Robert Eggers' The Witch. It's one of my favorite horror films. Unfortunately, I did not like The Lighthouse. I know a lot of people did, but it was, I don't like saying it was not for me, because I feel like saying that just means you didn't like the movie. But I think for me, The Lighthouse was a step down. I didn't quite understand the movie. I thought it was kind of incomprehensible. That being said, The Northman, I think, might be his best film, because this movie, not only does it have another round of incredible actors, whether it's Anya Taylor-Joy, Alexander Skarsgård, Nicole Kidman, Ethan Hawke, it also has an unbelievably exciting and captivating storyline of revenge, of vengeance. And I think what's really cool about the movie is just like the look of the film visually. It just has some amazing sequences. I'm so glad I saw it at a really cool theater, that the sound design was on point, the picture was on point, and there is a twist. I'm seeing a lot of my movies I like this year have some really cool twists, but there's a twist in this film that is just so good. And my jaw just dropped when I saw it. And yeah, like, I think that The Northman has the action you want it to have. It has the pain you want it to have. It has an amazing score. It's just an all-around great film. So that was my number 6. Now we're at my top 5. So number 5 is Dan Trachtenberg's Prey, which is a film that was released on Hulu. And I think that was a massive massive misstep by Disney, by 20th Century Studios. This is a film that should have been released in theaters. And it's a film that should have been released in theaters because it's a movie that I think the theatrical experience, you would have been on the edge of your seat. You would have heard the sound design. You would have seen the amazing cinematography. Audiences would have come and they would have joined together in this communal experience and experienced this amazing film. Amber Midthunder is the lead of Prey, and she is so good in this movie. The amount of representation in this film has a Native American cast that there's a point in the movie where you do get to see, I think it's the French, but they use this idea that when it comes to a lot of these types of movies, you will have the French be the lead and then they meet the Native Americans, but you're actually seeing the French as through the eyes of the Native American characters. And that's something that really is really different, and it's something that I really love seeing. I loved the design of the Predator in this film. He has this really cool looking mask. And they really do a great job of setting up the story, setting up the main character of the movie, and really setting up a new type of Predator film that doesn't take place in the future. It doesn't even take place in present day. And that is what I think the series duly needed, because it's a series that really has so much potential. But if you look at some of the movies they made, especially Shane Black's The Predator, which is one of the worst films I saw in 2018, you really get to see how it's a really, really interesting character. The idea of a character that is like the alpha predator hunting those that it feels like it's in competition with. And in the case of this movie, you get to see what it's like for a tribe. I believe it's like the 1700s, I believe. Or maybe it's 1800s. But yeah, unfortunately, I will say with the idea of it being on Hulu, I feel like my memory of this film is kind of dimmed because I did watch it 2 times, but it's not a film that I feel like if people watched it in a theater, more people would be talking about it today. So yeah, I really, really love Prey. My number 4 film of 2022 is Where the Crawdads Sing, which is a film that I had not really had any intention of seeing until a bunch of my friends told me how good it was. And I was blown away by this film. This film is pretty much a perfect movie. Like, there's like no other way of getting around it. It sets out what it tells with its story. It has amazing like characters, especially the lead, played by Daisy Edgar Jones, known as like the Marsh Girl in the movie. She's really a character that I really sympathized with. And it kind of shows you how like society has a tendency to other people and kind of just cast people out just because they might look funny or because they act different. And this film shows you that we are all human beings on this earth, and never underestimate, one's intelligence, never underestimate one's passions, because they can, really become something that you never expect. And it's just, I think, a movie that has a really captivating story. I never was disinterested in it. I kept on watching it from start to finish. And yeah, it's just a really, really fun movie. It's somewhat of a Nicholas Sparks type of story with a romance in there, but I bought the romance. I thought it was really sweet. And the ending, all I will say is the ending of this movie will blow you away. And the Taylor Swift song Carolina at the end will also blow you away. Okay, so number 3 is Everything Everywhere All at Once, a movie that a lot of people have been talking about this year. It's not really a big surprise that's on my list. I really love this film. I thought it was a really, unique, inventive, creative, imaginative film. I will say that at first it took a while for me to get into it, but I did, I was like into it the whole way through. And the ending is just so powerful and so meaningful. All the characters are really, really well written, especially the daughter, played by Stephanie Hugh, and Michelle Yeoh gives a tour de force performance. Ke Huy Quan, who many know as Short Round from Indiana Jones and Temple of Doom, he's going to get an Oscar. I have no doubt he is winning the Oscar for this. He is so good in this movie. And it is, as many say, it is the best multiverse movie of the year. It does explore so many unique multiverse concepts. And it's what you expect to see when you go to the movies. You get the escapism. And it's one of those movies that when you go to see Everything Everywhere All at Once, you're just like looking at it like you might have when you watched The Matrix, like you did when you saw Inception. And I know a lot of people, like I remember Olivia Wilde mentioned when Don't Worry Darling came out, that it would, like, she looked at Inception, she looked at Matrix. And I appreciate Don't Worry Darling. I don't love the movie, but I think it's an okay film. But you see many directors like Olivia Wilde say how their films were inspired by like these concepts like Matrix, like Inception, these like out of body experiences like that will blow your mind. In the case of this movie, it really does blow your mind. And you're like, how did they make this? How did they write this? It's so, so good. And I highly recommend it. My second favorite movie of the year is really very close with my first favorite movie of the year. So, my second favorite movie of the year is The Batman. Matt Reeves directed this film. It is a film that I have to say it's a perfect Batman movie. For me, my favorite film of all time is Batman Begins. Very pretty much tied with The Dark Knight, but they are, in my opinion, perfect Batman films. This film, I wouldn't say is at that level, but it's very close. It's the closest we've seen since those films have come out, and it nails everything about the Batman character. It has so many cool connections to the comics, especially Jeff Loeb's Long Halloween series. Um, and it really, I think what this movie does is it transports you into Gotham City. You feel like you're living in that world. You feel like you know these characters. Selena Kyle, played by Zoe Kravitz, amazing. Colin Farrell, playing the Penguin, amazing. John Turturro, in a very underrated performance as Carmine Falcone, amazing. Paul Dano as the Riddler, unbelievably good. So many performances. The Greg Fraser cinematography is right up there with his cinematography from Dune. The score by Michael Giacchino deserved the best score nomination at the Oscars. Honestly, I think it may have deserved to win. It is that good. There is so much about the Batman to talk, fondly about. I think for me, one of the best moments in a cinema I had was watching the Batmobile chase that never lets you go. The relationship between Bruce and Selina. I love how it doesn't exactly go into Bruce Wayne, it goes into Batman. And he hasn't become Bruce Wayne fully, or he hasn't developed that persona fully. Um, Robert Pattinson. I'll end off this review by just saying Robert Pattinson. He is Batman. So, yeah, that is to me my second favorite film of the year. And it could be my favorite, but we'll talk about right now my favorite film of the year, which is Avatar: The Way of Water. Avatar is one of my favorite films of all time. It is a film that meant a lot to me. It's really, I think, one of the reasons how I really got into focusing on movies every week, because when it came out, I started to pay even more attention to reviews and started paying more attention to the movies that were being released. There's a reason why like 2010 probably, if you compare 2010 to like my other years prior of seeing movies, I saw many more movies in 2010 than I did the years prior. And I've been waiting 13 years for Avatar: The Way of Water. It is here, and it did not disappoint. James Cameron knocks it out of the park. He is one of the best directors of all time. He has not made a bad movie. And he is a director that literally knows the art of filmmaking. He's a director that has now given us two movies that explore the concept of protecting our planet, unlike any other movie I've seen where he's actually making the movie about Earth. Even though it's about another planet itself, he's making it about Earth, and that we need to protect this planet. We need to protect its oceans, we need to protect the rainforests, and we need to protect animals. I think that the cast of Avatar: The Way of Water could not be more praised, especially when it comes to Sigourney Weaver, who plays Jake and Neytiri's daughter, Kiri, adopted daughter, that is. I won't go into spoilers, but Sigourney Weaver is playing a 14-year-old girl in this. If you told somebody that a 14-year-old girl was playing that role, they would believe you. There's like no doubt. The way she performs this role, even close friends of mine who pay attention to all the movie news, did not know that Sigourney Weaver did the motion capture for this film. She was unbelievable. And there are things that you question when it comes to awards consideration. Why, like, someone that gives a performance like that doesn't get nominated. It's a real shame, but that being said, Avatar: The Way of Water expands upon the world of Pandora. Really, really, I think, does some interesting science fiction type questions, especially like one surrounding the villain Quaritch from the first film in like a Westworld angle, which I really loved. The cinematography, the visual effects are honestly the best visual effects of all time. There's nothing that you can say watching this movie when you see that they actually performed all of these stunts underwater in tanks, and I'm like, how do you do this? How do you keep on making these movies and pushing the boundaries? And that's what James Cameron's doing. That's what the VFX artists at Weta are doing. It is one of the best films of this decade, and I just also love how Jake Sully and Neytiri are not treated as if, they are quote unquote old characters. They are given badass roles, especially Jake, but I am so glad to know that the franchise still respects these characters because it's written by the same people that did the first movie, but also it's written by some new writers from the Planet of the Apes trilogy, and they just add so much complexity to these characters, so much complexity to the children. There's a lot to say when it comes to even bullying in here. There's a lot to say when it comes to like isolation that young children feel. I mean, there's so much to this movie, and the music, Simon Franklin's score, the fact that the third act of this film is just heart pounding. I was literally on the edge of my seat watching this movie. I haven't been on the edge of my seat watching like an ending of a film since like Avengers Endgame. It's one of the best movies of the decade. It is my favorite film of the year. And yeah, so that is my top 10 of 2022. Let me know down below. Have you seen any other movies in 2022 that you think should be on this list? What's your top 10 list? Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day. Bye, guys.